So we will catch up with Nick eventually, but you had did something interesting this last weekend, too. You were running across the state of Iowa, Relay Iowa.
Yep.
And, man, I don't know. You don't look like you're ready for retirement here. You came back. You were pretty spry on after this one. I remember seeing you after the first one.
Yes.
And you look completely exhausted.
50 pounds heavier and hadn't run in 20 years, and it was rough.
Really? That was that bad, huh?
Yeah, that was that bad. So, no, this one went really well. Had a great time, got a great crew that I run with and have in all the 4 years that I've done this. It's been a little different each year, and this year was, only a little bit different than it's been in the past, but another great crew to run with.
Does it help going into retirement knowing that you got little Chloe there that can probably take over and do better since she was smoking people on Saturday?
Yeah, it does. As long as she decides that she's going to do it.
Oh, she'll
next
do it
year.
as long as Mom lets her.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but I know they keep teasing me that I'll be back, but I think mentally I knew that before going into this one that it was time to put up the running shoes, not to give up running by any means, but I'll be honest with you, I was okay yesterday. I feel it today. Not the soreness and stuff, but the lack of sleep for 3 days. I'm literally struggling to stay awake right now.
Bit of a delayed reaction going on there.
Yeah, the body's finally realizing how little bit of sleep you get, and when you're busy trying to cover things and stuff, it's just really hard to recover from. So.
First of all, loved following Jeff Storyahan's pictures of you.
Yes.
Jeff seems to take the best pictures of you all the time and post
He
those.
takes the best pictures, period.
So,
He finds Blankman at the right moment. And if you get the private pictures that Jeff sends you, they're even better.
No, I'm not on that mailing list.
They're good.
I do need to explain the whole toe cramp one that he put up. I wasn't actually a toe cramp. I can't remember, you might know it, but I can't remember the name of the muscle that runs underneath your calf. I tweaked that a little bit on Sunday, and it got stiff on me during one of my runs. So I was trying to stretch, and I had grabbed my foot, and I had it up on the dash, and I was yanking on the toe and the foot trying to stretch that so I could go back out and run again. And Jeff, of course, got his camera out and took a quick picture of me there, and I look like I'm in a lot of pain because it was hurting pretty good. But and then he put on there that it was a toe cramp.
So what's the hardest part about this? Is it just physically draining? Is it your legs that hurt the most? Is it the lack of sleep?
I'll be honest with you, the first 2 years that I ran it was the legs. By Sunday morning, I could barely walk because they were so stiff and sore. But this year, I trained well enough that my legs never really got tired or sore or anything like that. I ran a lot from March on. The hardest part is the lack of sleep. I 4.5, maybe 5 hours from Friday morning at 4 o'clock in the morning until we started driving back Sunday, early afternoon. So it's just it's a lack of sleep, trying to fight through being just sleepy tired all the time.
Well, you run like what, 2 miles in a stretch? Is that how you break that up?
Yeah, every team does it differently. The way our team does it is like, for example, the first section that the group I was in ran was from Anthon over to Arthur, which is a 36-mile stretch. So it was 6 people in the vehicle. Each person in the vehicle had to run 6 miles at some point. So I try to break mine down so that, I don't want to do 2 sets of 3 and then have somebody else doing a bunch of ones. So if all of a sudden all of us people that are doing 2 sets of 3 are done, then that poor person that's doing ones has 4 miles left, and they're the only one left, so they got to go out and run a bunch of ones, run 4 miles in a row. So I ran mainly 2s this weekend. So almost every time I went out and I ran 2. Sometimes I'd run a 1. Like if we had a 5-mile section, where you had to run 5 miles out of it, I might do like a 2 and then a 1.5, something like that. So,
you really broke it up into manageable distance.
Yes,
I bet
absolutely.
I bet that time in between runs got a really short by Sunday.
Yeah, it did. And the crazy thing is I run with some really, really good runners. We have some Boston Marathoners in there, some guys that run, 6-minute or under 6-minute miles. So you don't get a lot of recovery time. And it's tough because you get inside the back of a minivan or something, you're cramped up. So every time you pull over to the side of the road, you got to get out and try to walk around so that you don't get stiff and sore. But, every group kind of does. There are groups that everybody runs a half mile, so you get 2 vehicles going together, and every half mile there's somebody out running. It's just whatever, your team decides to do. So
how many miles total?
I did 32.5 myself over the weekend. It's 339 miles total. from Sioux City where we start to Dubuque where we finish.
Wow. And by the way, I was talking to him the other day, and he goes, got my first roadkill. And I'm like, I don't know what your lingo is with this whole thing. But explain what a roadkill is, and you got your first one.
I did. Every team writes roadkill on the side. It's every team that you pass. So if you pass a team, that's considered a roadkill. So it was kind of an interesting story. As I told John, you're really supposed to, everybody runs with the GPS. So you're supposed to run to the next person that's going to run. And they wait for you where, like if I said I was going to run 2 miles, our vehicle would drive up, stop 2 miles ahead, and then I would run to the vehicle, and the next person would be waiting out, and we'd do a handoff, and they'd take off running. But there was a team this year that was just randomly dropping people off and letting them run without their other runner being there. Well, they dropped some guy off about 200 meters in front of me, and it made me a little bit mad because their other runner was way, way behind me, and he just took off running. And I kind of got a little bit upset, and I ran a faster half mile to 3/4 of a mile than I probably should ever run. But the anger came out in me, and I passed him, and so I got my only roadkill of my 4-year career. So it's a great way to retire.
There you
my
go.
only roadkill.
So were they just trying to let guys run randomly, and because it doesn't count unless the GPS is there, right?
Well, I think what they were doing is I think they were dropping a bunch of their people off, and then they would go back and pick them up where they ended and just drive the GPS ahead and stuff
try to
ahead,
speed
so that
things
they
up.
were trying to speed things up. So
technically they were running, but they were
running
they were
the
whole
entire
distance.
difference, but they weren't running it the way.
They weren't a relay.
Yeah, and the weird thing about it was they were keeping roadkill, so they counted me as a roadkill, even though nobody actually technically passed me because the guy that passed me was driving in a vehicle when I got passed. So that was the part that kind of, when you figured out that was the stuff that was going on, okay, and you made you mad. So it made me feel really good to go ahead and pass that guy. So, yeah.
So no more next year.
No more. I know the team thinks that I'm coming back, but mentally I'm I will put it this way. Every year I ran it, I wanted to do better, and I wanted to do it the way that I did it this year. This year I got through feeling really good. I ran my fastest miles on a consistent basis and felt really good about the way I ran it. So I think it's a good year to just be able to step away and be done.
Quit before you walk away going, man, I never should have done that.
Right.
It's
Absolutely.
Still enjoyable at that point.
Yeah.
Good memories going on.
Get an hour and a half of sleep on the independent, hallway floor that's rock hard at 11 o'clock at night on Saturday night, and then getting up an hour and a half later to go run again. I love it while I'm doing it, but I don't need to do it anymore.
Yeah. So Relay Iowa in the books for this year. So we'll talk more. KCIM Sports Rewind coming up. Got some baseball and softball from last night on the way.